It's time now for Cleve TV News with the latest in news and sports from the wires of the Associated Press and United Press International, as provided by the American Forces Radio and Television Network.
I'm Navy Journalist Barry Seymour. Here's news and sports for Wednesday, October 4th, 1983. Lech Walesa says he won't even try to go to Norway to accept the 1983 Nobel Peace Prize, but he will attempt to convince Polish authorities to allow his wife to make the trip in his place. The jubilant founder of Poland's outlawed Solidarity Union also told reporters he will donate the $200,000 in prize money to a Catholic church fund to help develop Polish agriculture. President Reagan is reportedly gratified by the recognition the Nobel Peace Prize gives to Lech Walesa and others who Reagan says fought so long and so hard for peaceful evolutionary change in Poland. Senator Edward Kennedy calls Walesa's Peace Award richly deserved and praises the former Union leader for helping keep what Kennedy called the light and freedom in Poland burning. Arizona floods have apparently claimed 2 more victims, raising the toll to 15 from a week of storms. There's a report a vehicle on an Indian reservation stalled in several feet of water Monday night and was washed away before a National Guard helicopter could arrive to help. President Reagan today declared Arizona a major flood disaster area. That releases federal funds to help victims and repair damage. As expected, Lane Kirkland was re-elected as president of the AFL-CIO today. The vote at the Labor Federation's convention in Hollywood, Florida, was unanimous, and there were no challengers, as Kirkland stood for his 3rd 2-year term. Kirkland was behind organized Labor's decision to break with tradition and endorse a 1984 presidential candidate before the primaries. The government of Lebanon says they're prepared to discuss anything at national unity talks with the country's warring forces, even annulling the security pact it signed 6 months ago with Israel. The 9-day-old ceasefire is still holding, despite some reports of sniping incidents in Beirut. A Saudi Arabian mediator is also working to organize the National Unity Conference. 43 members of the House are sponsoring a resolution that calls on the Filipino government to make its investigation of opposition leader Benigno Aquino's death thorough, independent, and impartial. The resolution, to be submitted to a Foreign Affairs subcommittee tomorrow, also calls for safeguards to ensure that next year's elections are fair and open to all. Meanwhile, an estimated 20,000 Filipinos jammed the streets of Manila today in a show of support for the United States. The demonstration was sparked by President Reagan's decision to postpone a planned visit to that country. Today's march marked a dramatic shift from earlier demonstrations which had blasted America for backing the rule of President Marcos. A government spot check of hazardous waste dumps shows most are in violation of federal laws. The General Accounting Office sampled waste dumps in North Carolina and in Illinois and found that 78% of dump officials failed to comply the requirement that they monitor nearby underground water supplies to make sure that the wastes are not contaminating drinking water. The president of the Airline Pilots Association is accusing Continental Airlines of turning the federal bankruptcy laws into a haven for scoundrels. Henry Duffy warned at 2 House panels today that Continental's use of the laws could, in his words, spawn a wave of corporate lawlessness. Continental filed for reorganization under federal bankruptcy laws and announced that it considered its labor contracts null and void. Its pilots and flight attendants then went on strike, charging the airline with trying to break the unions. The chief Soviet negotiator to the Geneva nuclear arms talks says if the U.S. shows real flexibility, there will be results and progress. Viktor Karpov spoke to reporters before a private meeting with his U.S. counterpart, Edward Rowney. During the meeting, Rowney gave Karpov President Reagan's latest compromise proposal to reduce U.S. and Soviet nuclear arsenals. Treasury Secretary Donald Regan predicts Congress will approve an $8.4 billion increase in the U.S. contribution to the International Monetary Fund. Democrats, meanwhile, have said they'll hold up action on the issue until they get a written apology from President Reagan for a Republican letter attacking Democrats who support that increase. Regan told the U.S. Chamber of Commerce today an explanation might be forthcoming, but not an apology. Convicted killer James Autry is alive today because of his 3rd stay of execution. U.S. Supreme Court Justice Byron White issued the reprieve just 31 minutes before Autry was to die this morning by lethal injection in Huntsville, Texas. The stay allows Autry to make a full appeal to the 5th Circuit Court of Appeals. That court last night rejected an emergency plea by Autry. A Los Angeles federal judge has approved settlement of a job discrimination case that will force Pasadena, California to boost the number of blacks and Hispanics to 19% in its police and fire departments. The city also must distribute $500,000 among up to 2,000 people who were refused jobs, fired, or denied promotions because of race or ethnic background since 1975. Senate Democratic leader Robert Byrd says a resolution calling for the resignation of Interior Secretary James Watt could be brought up in the Senate later today, and it couldn't be coming up at a worse time for Watt. Assistant Majority Leader Ted Stevens, one of Watt's biggest supporters, says support for the Interior Secretary continues to decline. Watt's in trouble for describing an Interior Department panel as having a black, a woman, 2 Jews, and a cripple. Israel's parliament meets Monday for a vote of confidence on the new government of Yitzhak Shamir, which was announced today. Shamir is expected to win a narrow majority after 6 deputies stopped demanding another effort to form a coalition with the opposition Labor Party. Coinciding with the announcement, news of Israeli government approval for 6 new Jewish settlements has been announced in the occupied West Bank. Leftist guerrillas seized an important town in eastern El Salvador yesterday. Witnesses say the rebels took 21 prisoners, killed 2 guardsmen, and seized a number of weapons. The captured town is Jucuapa, located in the coffee-growing province of Usulután. Small tremors continue to shake the Japanese island of Miyajima today as smoke billowed from the smoldering lava of Mount Oyama. The volcano erupted 2 days ago, burying hundreds of homes. No injuries were reported in that last eruption. And finally, Brown Mackie College, a business school in Salina, Kansas, is offering guaranteed success. Brown Mackie students unable to find a job within 4 months of graduation will get their tuition back, according to a college spokesman. He says it's not really much of a risk. Nearly 98% of last year's graduates found jobs with no trouble at all. We'll be back with a look at weather and sports right after this.
Thursday morning.
In sports today, thanks to Mike Schmidt and Steve Carlton, the Philadelphia Phillies have the upper hand in the best-of-5 National League playoff. Schmidt's first inning homer off Jerry Royce propelled Carlton and the Phillies to a 1-0 victory over the Dodgers in Los Angeles last night. Carlton scattered 7 hits and struck out 6 before reliever Al Holland bailed him out of a bases-loaded jam with 2 out in the 8th inning to preserve the victory. Despite the win, the Phillies aren't taking anything for granted. As Schmidt points out, Philadelphia won the opener of the 1977 playoffs, but the Dodgers bounced back to win 3 straight. Tonight, the Dodgers hoping to even the series behind Fernando Valenzuela. The Phillies counter with John Denny, who led the National League with a 19-6 record this season. In the American League, playoffs begin in Baltimore this afternoon with the Orioles and Chicago White Sox rated almost dead even. The White Sox led the majors with 99 wins this year, while Baltimore won 98 games. Each team features some good pitching, above-average defense, and power in the middle of the lineup. For the White Sox, it's their first postseason appearance since 1959. The playoffs are old hat for the Orioles, however, won the American League Eastern Division title 7 times. There's a 70% chance of rain for today's opener, with temperatures in the high 70s at game time, 3:30 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, that is. The pitching matchups for the first game pit Lamar Hoyt, a 24-game winner for the White Sox, against left-hander Scott McGregor, an 18-game winner for the Orioles. Both have excellent control. Hoyt walked only 31 batters in 261 innings this season. McGregor, meanwhile, walked just 45 in 254 innings. In baseball's postseason game of musical chairs, the Cincinnati Reds fired manager Russ Nixon following their last-place finish in the National League West. Nixon's replacement is Vern Rapp, who previously guided the St. Louis Cardinals to a third-place finish in the National League East in 1977. However, he was fired 18 games into the '78 season. Rapp has been a coach with Montreal since 1979. The Detroit Tigers awarded Sparky Anderson a 2-year contract extension for leading the team to the 3rd best record in the major leagues this season. The extension means Anderson will manage the Tigers through 1986. The Tigers broke off talks with pitcher Walt Wilcox, allowing him to become a free agent. Wilcox missed nearly 2 months this season with a stiff shoulder, finished the year with an 11-10 record. Yankees outfielder Dave Winfield is suing his boss, George Steinbrenner, for $2.6 million. Winfield claims that Steinbrenner failed to provide Winfield's charitable organization with a promised $300,000 a year contribution. 2 years ago, Winfield sued Steinbrenner over a similar dispute. The problem was settled out of court. Coach Don Shula is changing quarterbacks in an effort to put some spark in the Miami Dolphins' offense. Shula says rookie quarterback Dan Marino will start ahead of veteran David Woodley for Sunday's game against Buffalo. West Virginia's football team is rapidly gaining respect. Unranked in the preseason, the Mountaineers are unbeaten in 5 games and rated 5th in this week's coaches poll. Nebraska is a unanimous pick for the #1 spot, of course, ranked ahead of Texas, Alabama, and North Carolina. New York Islanders coach Al Arbour is not pleased by the way his 4-time defending Stanley Cup champions started the season. The Quebec Nordiques, getting 3 goals from Dale Hunter, handled the Islanders 7-3 last night. Arbour said his team had no intensity, that the Islanders played in a tippy-toed fashion, very casual and nonchalant. In St. Louis, Bernie Federko scored 2 goals and assisted on another. That led the Blues to a 5-3 victory over the Pittsburgh Penguins. And the Indiana Pacers signed Steve Stepanovich to a multi-year contract yesterday. Stepanovich, a 6'11" center, was the 2nd player chosen in the NBA draft last June. While at the University of Missouri, Stepanovich set records in scoring, rebounding, and blocked shots. And finally, the NCAA may soon place San Diego State's basketball program on probation because of recruiting violations. The NCAA told university officials it has a list of violations and possible penalties following an investigation that began last spring. That's it for news, sports, and weather. I'm Navy journalist Barry Seymour.
This has been Cleve TV News with the latest in news and sports from the wires of the Associated Press and United Press International, as provided by the American Forces Radio and Television Network. Cleve TV News is produced in the CCTV studios aboard USS Cleveland.